Please. Good sign.
Yeah.
Okay. So welcome. Others will join us, and I'll keep pressing the button to let people in. So I just really want to take this opportunity to, well, first of all, celebrate. This is our very first Research Hub meeting. We're going to vary the times between sort of the end of the day, also kind of over lunch times, just so it's and vary the days as well to make sure that we make it as accessible for people. And if people can't come, we are recording it, so we will put it on our One Gloucester website and tell obviously people can look at it at their leisure. So the one thing I will say before we launch in is we are limited to 40 minutes for these. Basically we're using the free version at the moment of Zoom. So but to be honest, I think probably 40 minutes is enough in terms of presentation time and questions and answers. So what I would say for this, if people don't want to appear on camera, please, it's absolutely fine to take yourself off camera if you don't, conscious that we're recording it, and you might appear on it. Well, you possibly will appear if your camera's on. So just to say that option is there for you. So with no further ado, I wanted to invite Elaine Willmore this evening to our first Research Hub meeting. So Elaine is an advanced practice physiotherapist, or practitioner. We now sort of a bit more of a generic title, isn't it, rather than a physiotherapist that centered her kind of work around complex shoulder problems. So she's kind of has worked in that kind of elite sport, particularly at kind of premiership football from a professional perspective, rugby and first class cricket. She did her master's in neuromusculoskeletal physiotherapy back in 2011 and was awarded the prestigious British Elbow and Shoulder Society Fellowship in 2017. So she's been an Allied Health Professional Committee member on the British Elbow and Shoulder Society since 2017 to 2021, and also has judged. I'm just kind of summarising here, but actually, latterly, reason for also inviting Elaine is she's just finishing off a PhD around social prescribing. While she can't go into the findings because she's not quite at the end of it, and obviously not the PhD has not been released yet, she'll probably give you some snippets as we go through. So she's a very, very research active in Gloucestershire, and yeah, it's great to hear from you and your kind of your research journey for the next sort of 20 minutes. The way this is going to work is a sort of 20-minute presentation, and then hopefully followed by some questions and answers. So very informal. This is very much opened up to health and care professionals and our people in communities because we work really closely with them around research. So it's really nice to see some familiar names on the list. So yeah, to hand over to you now, Elaine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think when I share my screen, I will lose seeing you. Um, oh, I don't. It says I can't share.
Oh,
It says send request. You can request sharing for this meeting.
oh right,
Is it because
okay.
I'm not? Is it because I'm not in charge?
All right, allow. I can. It's come up. A little screens pop up to say allow. So that's
Yeah, bro.
now.
Let's
Thank you. We're
try
just
that.
finding our feet with using Zoom because we're all
Yeah. Okay. Has that shared? No, can you see that?
should be coming up. It's not come up quite yet.
I think there's more people joining us, Anna. They've seemed to have gone into a Teams meeting for some reason.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
So there seems to be quite a few people
Oh, I'll I'll I'll
moving over.
I'll put the Zoom link on there on the Teams chat
okay.
now. Yeah.
Somebody's already done that. I was just in that
Oh,
room.
thank
Ah,
you.
Yeah, no
excellent.
worries.
Multitasking.
So I've lost sight of you now. So can you see any of my shared screen?
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
The joys of technology.
I know.
I can see Carl's name come up on my screen for some reason. Oh,
Still
it looks like it's
talking.
coming through now, Elaine.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it
Yay!
now. Yeah.
Woohoo! Right. Is that it?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Lovely. Good. So yeah, what Emma asked me to talk about today was really my sort of clinical academic journey up until this point. I know we've got lots of different people from sort of different parts of the ICB, but I think I'm probably just like many many people there, that I had a very, very clinical career for a very long time, and found it really quite difficult to move into research, which is what I wanted to do for such a long time. So I'm hoping that this journey will resonate with lots of people, and hopefully it might give people some options or ideas as to how you can start to build your research pillar as well. So like Emma said, I qualified as a physio in 1999. And I was quite lucky, really, that physio is a relatively new profession. It was only really started in the 1900s, and it was 1977 when physios were given professional autonomy. And I started my clinical training in 1996. And we had a really kind of new wave of lecturers, so people who were lecturer practitioners, people who were kind of very at the forefront of building that evidence-based practice into physiotherapy. And at the time that I trained and qualified, we were still using, electrotherapy, kind of massage, things that the profession had maybe been built on back in the kind of mid-century, but the evidence base was already suggesting that those were modalities that weren't clinically effective. So I was always interested in that sort of evidence-based practice and building research in and challenging, practice that the research suggested was outdated. So sort of 7 years in, I started my MSc, but I had a really early career focus on clinical expertise. I was absolutely desperate to be a physio. I worked so hard to get the kind of high grades that I needed. And this was at the time where there was like 20 people for every one space at physio school. So I was so desperate. I just I loved the early part of my career. I did every course going and really wanted to be the sort of best physio that I could, which for me was being able to use the evidence to offer really good, high quality care. So started my MSc 2005. But then in the year later, in 2006, I had my first opportunity to be part of a national trial, which was a whiplash trial run from the University of Oxford. And I really enjoyed that. It was my sort of first chance to collect data and to kind of feed into the trial mechanisms and the trial structures. And that gave me my first real taste, as I'm sure it is for many people's first experience of research has been part of a trial. And because my clinical area by that point had moved very much into upper limb, more specifically complex shoulder problems, I was admitted into the British Elbow and Shoulder Society, which is a sort of subsidiary of the British Orthopaedic Association. And that really helped build my relationships with lots of people who were actively researching and shaping the future of practice, both from a surgical point of view and from a rehabilitation point of view. And you're going to see that for me was absolutely a crucial network that allowed me to progress down this road. And then through, because it's like that, isn't it? Once you've done well in one trial, researchers move into different teams and they'll be like, oh yeah, we did well in Gloucester, so we're going to ask them if they'll come on to our trial. So the second trial I got to be a site lead for was the UK heel fracture trial. And that was a fairly easy trial in some sense. It was conservative versus non-conservative management of heel fracture trials, but it was my first real experience of how difficult it is to manage a trial locally when you've got competing discourses going on from different surgeons. There was a lack of equipoise. We had some absolute car crashes where surgeons withdrew patients after they'd been consented because they didn't agree with the trial. So it was a real lesson for me in diplomacy and trial management that stood me in good stead for later on. So it took me 5 years to complete my master's. I was working at the time, but these were the kind of crazy years. We bought a house, we got married, I had 2 babies. So that was all a little bit of there's my little ones there. So that was a difficult time just to survive. It's a matter of survival when you're dealing with all that. But I did really try to carry on with finishing the kind of written part of my research, starting to write it up. And so from the next year, from 2012, so my second little boy was 2011, and 2012 I was able to start presenting my work from my masters at different conferences. So the National Charter Society of Physiotherapy conference and the National BESS conferences, I was able to start to present a lot of the work that I'd found from my MSc, which was really good fun and really interesting. And then published my very first article in 2016, and then the group who had done the MINT trial had then got funding for a big trial. It was an HTA call that they had been successful with, and they got in touch with me because they knew that I was a shoulder specialist, got in touch with me when they were doing the HTA bid for the GRASP trial, which was getting it right, addressing shoulder pain. So I got to be involved in that trial all the way through bid, through design, through intervention design, and then Gloucestershire was one of the first 3 pilot sites for that study. And we absolutely smashed that trial. We recruited 120 patients. We had 50 plus physios involved in delivery, and it was a trial that the results really, really did change practice. And it was my first opportunity to be a PI on that study. And we had the honour, because we recruited 120 patients, we had the honour, they stayed open for us to see through our patients that were booked in, because they let us close out the trial. But what that did do was it raised my profile within the trust. Because there was quite a lot of buzz around it. It was on social media. The trial, clinical trials unit, made a big thing of it and wrote to the trust to say that how well we'd done. And so I started to kind of appear beyond the the limits of the physiotherapy department. And so at that point, I really knew that I wanted to pursue research as part of my clinical career, but I had nowhere to go. I didn't have a mentor. There didn't seem like an obvious pathway. And because I was already working at band 7 level, I couldn't afford to take that pay cut to do the traditional approach through a stipend or anything like that. So I was feeling a bit lost, but what I absolutely had was the most amazing supporters from my boss, Julie Knight, at the therapy department at the hospital, and Susie Durrell, our consultant as well. And they just constantly encouraged me and, constantly supported me and did everything they could to kind of help me. And through my BESS network, a friend of mine, I can't remember if I'd said something in a presentation or a meeting or tweeted something, I can't remember. And she got in touch with me. She was coming to the end of her PhD, and she said, right, Elaine, come on, we've got to get you, off the ground here. What are we going to do? So I had a really good chat with her, and very soon after that, she sent me the details of one of the internships through the NIHR ICA program. And her supervisor was Professor Daniela van der Vint from Kiel. And my area that I was interested in for my research linked with what Daniela's was. She's an epidemiologist by background. And so we got introduced, and she really liked the idea. But the problem was is that deadline for the internship was in 3 days. So we basically turned this application around in super quick time. And got it submitted, only to find out after submission that they had some geographical restrictions on it, and I wasn't working in that area, so it wasn't relevant to me. But what they said was, what would have been, given the experience I already had in research, they suggested that I do a bridging program rather than the internship. So that's when I started working with Daniela, who is one of the most amazing people I have ever met in my life. Honestly, if my doorbell went in the middle of the night and she was standing there saying, Elaine, I need a kidney, I'd be like, yeah, have it. Do you need one? Is one enough? You can have 2 of my kidneys if you want. She was just the most fantastic person to work with. And she got, I would submit work and it would come back absolutely massacred with track changes. But I always improved after each time I was, did any work with her. I always got better and better. And she did it in such a great way. So did this big application for the internship, sorry, for the bridging program. But at this point, I was really racked with that kind of inferiority complex. Like I always kind of assumed that, there were other people who were far smarter than me, better research pedigree than me. And I kind of always thought, God, am I good enough to, take myself down this avenue? And Daniela said to me, it was the best piece of advice I ever got, besides from a midwife who said, do whatever it takes to get you through the night. This was Daniela's piece of advice. And she said, if you are the smartest person in a room, you are in the wrong room. And I really sort of, took that to heart. And about that time, I don't know if it was years of sleep deprivation and a shortened temper, but I also, at that point, started to realize if I did want to get on, I was going to have to put my head above the parapet. And I was going to have to kind of stick my neck out a little bit more and start to get myself noticed. And that's never sat comfortably with me. I'm generally not that person. And I'm going to say a little minor swear word. So if anybody's offended by minor swear words, then like close your ears. But where I grew up in Scotland, there's like a real insult, which is to call somebody a gobshite, which is if you're full of like chat, and you're all full of it, but you can't deliver. And I was always absolutely insistent. At no point in my life would I ever be that person. But at this point, I was thinking, right, now you're going to have to put your big girl's pants on and be a little bit braver and put yourself out there more. We've got the air ambulance coming in. If you can hear a load of noise in the background, that's right outside my window. So that year, I decided to put myself forward for the BESS AHP Fellowship, which is only one given every year. And I also put myself forward to be part of the Education Committee, which is the committee that drives practice within BESS. So that's done every year at the national conference, which for me was a miserable time, because I had a horrible interview for my fellowship. The 3 surgeons, all men, all older, were utterly vile, horribly sexist, and I nearly left and walked out and thought, stuff your fellowship, I don't even want to be part of this organisation anymore. So I was having a terrible time. I was also put at dinner on the same table as somebody who'd plagiarised my work. So it was not a good day. And towards the end of the night, I was like, I'm just going to go, because I was having such a miserable time. I didn't even want to spend any of my own money on a drink. And then walked across a bit to go and say goodbye to people, and tripped and fell and fractured my distal radius. So that was getting noticed at a place full of upper limb surgeons and physios. But I did get the fellowship, and I did get my place on the education committee. And from that, I was really able to challenge the fellowship model that was there, because it was really inhibitive to lots of people. It was designed around male surgical careers, traveling fellowships, going off to South Africa or Australia or something like that. And most of the people I knew were never in a position to undertake that type of fellowship. So I managed to change that to the structure that we have now. It was also 3 days before my interview for my bridging programme. So I had to go up to the University of Birmingham, having picked out a lovely outfit and planned my hair and everything. I went looking like I'd been dragged through a hedge backwards, because I still had a back slab on and couldn't even put on any proper clothes. But they must have thought that's the kind of resilience they were looking for, because I got the place, and that allowed me 30 fully funded days out to work with Daniela on an application for my doctoral fellowship. So at that point, I felt like I was going quite well. Over those years, I was publishing, I was presenting at conferences. I had the opportunity to kind of convene and curate different sort of focus symposia at national conference. I was the first AHP chief judge at BESS, which, trying to herd a group of surgeons who spent 3 days on the lash is like herding cats. So that was a bigger achievement than it sounds. But also gave me the opportunity to start to really help to support others and to bring other people along on their research journey. And this picture, somebody took it at the time just because they had their phone in their hand. This is one of our band 5 physios who qualified into COVID and did a big service redesign that we wrote up and submitted as an abstract. And that was her when she found out it had been accepted, which was just the most wonderful moment. And I think really demonstrates how building research into clinical practice and as part of careers is just such a fabulous thing to do for so many reasons. So I was going quite well. Got in my DRF application. The Institute of Primary Care lead who I was working with was like, "Oh, I can't wait to work on this. This is going to be such a fab project." And then, of course, the inevitable happened that I didn't get it. So, bit of a yeah, didn't get there. Didn't get the fellowship. Which was obviously a little bit gutting. But again, isn't it? It's how you view those failures that are inevitable as part of research. And at that point, I was already starting to think about a change of research direction from very musculoskeletal to things that worked more across the system because I worked with such complex MSK presentations. I knew that there were so many other factors that were involved and so many other wheels in motion with those people that often determined their outcome that I'd had my head turned a little bit already. But my next hero is many of you will remember Deb, who was our CEO here for a few years. And she had invited me to come in to do something with research in the trust. This is just about a week after I found out I hadn't got the fellowship. And I was a bit grumpy and bruised and pissed off. And I said to her, "Oh, you might want to find somebody else because I'm not feeling very positive about research at the moment." And she offered her time to sit down with me and to plan my next steps and, to talk about what I could do and, how I might be able to move forward. Which for the chief exec to, take an interest in you was just utterly, amazing. And it was such a gift. Um, and then this time, the social prescribing PhD came up, and I thought, actually, I'm really interested in this. I think this could be a good move. But the problem was because it was a scholarship, it didn't cover my salary. But Deb said, "Oh, I'm not making any promises, but let me see what I can do." And she messaged me while I was on holiday and said, I've got you the money, like go for it, like go and get it, Tiger. And did that. And this is when I found out my fellowship. This was the message that she that she sent me. She's like, OMFG, so thrilled. But to have the support like that from your chief exec is was just so fabulous. And that took me on to my next stage. So I've already given away all my kidneys. But if I could give away any other body parts, it would be to my two supervisors who've nurtured me along my PhD over the last few years. So Jane Melton, again, many of you will know from all the work that she's done in Gloucestershire, and Rachel Subner, who've just been absolutely brilliant. The PhD that I'm doing now is all around defining practice and defining practice of social prescribing. So it's very conceptual. It's quite different to a lot of the research that I've done before. So I've learned so much, and it's been an amazing process of discovery, even though at times, as I'm sure you understand, I've wanted to bang my head against a wall because it just hurts so much. But being part of the NIHR Academy as well has really created lots of opportunities. So I did the big doctoral training camp not last year, the year before, which was fantastic. Our team won, but once again, a real challenge in terms for managing a team. So we got put in our teams. We didn't know anybody before we arrived on the camp. And it was those skills of negotiating, man managing, diplomacy, because we did have some team members who were really quite difficult, lone wolves who weren't team players, and to be able to kind of coordinate that to bring a project together and successfully deliver it for the fake funding was a really big thing. So I'm still going. I'm still publishing and I've written some book chapters and things like that. I haven't published anything from my PhD yet because it's just a little bit early. So I'm still going. The tortoise is still, after all this time, is still going. And I sort of, I quite often think in sporting metaphors, and I feel like this has been me for years and years, is just, uphill, a bit of a long old slog to get to where I want to go. But what I have had is just the most amazing support from so many people, and would never have been able to do half the things I'd done if it hadn't been for the amazing support I'd had from people from the trust. And so part of what I'm really trying to do now is to build the clinical academics of the future. You know, I've been able to support, you know, different people to, you know, undergo their own projects, to write abstracts, to have them presented, to have them published. And it is all around that network. So that picture in the middle of us at the NIHR conference, the Marcus, to the person right of me, he's slightly ahead of me in his journey. So he's supported me. Julie Burry, who's in the middle there, she's a good friend of mine. She finished her PhD last year and she's now she's one of the senior NIHR people implementing the new AHP program, leaders program. But Tash, who's the tall one next to me, and Dave on the end, I've helped them to get their PCAFs and supported them through their PCAFs. So it is that network of everybody helping everybody else, everybody, you know, allowing people the space to phone up and just go, oh my God, like I don't even know what I'm doing here. I don't even know how to move forward with this. How am I going to get this done? You know, a reviewer 2 was vile. How am I going to turn this article around? So, you know, you definitely, unless you're very, very good or very lucky, never get anywhere on your own. So it took me 25 years to get to this point, which is somewhat attritional. But for our people coming through and the people who are part of our network now, it can't take them 25 years to, you know, to get to, you know, to get to that point. I really want to start kind of turbocharging our tortoises, so that they can start to build their own research pillar and, you know, allow that capability and capacity that we want to build within the system, to kind of, yeah, make that happen. So my journey is continuing. The finish line for my PhD feels in sight, but it's still a way off. But you know, like a true tortoise, we'll get there in the end. And that's me talking really quickly for 20 minutes. And I hope that was in any way interesting.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. So I've had a little thing come up, said we've got 10 minutes left on our Zoom call this evening.
Yeah.
So we've definitely got some time for some questions, and I expect if we do run out of time, because I think Zoom will probably cut us dead at 5:40. The fact that you put your email address on there, I'm guessing that people can kind of contact you directly if they've got a question. Yeah. But is there anybody there on the call? I think we've still got about 25 people on the call, which is great, because I've been looking at them to see if people aren't going to run off and make their tea and stuff. So, Marion, you're our first question.
Really interesting, Elaine, and you've got tenacity there to hold on for 25 years, and I do hope. But you're a pioneer. I think. Oh. That's the key, isn't it? Really, yeah. It's
well, what I lack for in talent, I make up for in perseverance.
Yeah, exactly. and you've paved the way for a lot of others to follow that will find it a lot easier, I hope. And because you were really breaking new grounds there, and I loved your description of it being sort of dominated by the medics, particularly orthopedics. Well, I mean, orthopedics is the hardest one to break into anyway, isn't it? So, so you've done really well. I've just got a couple of questions. Couple of comments as well. One was, to me, the mentor. You eventually got 2 really strong or even more mentors, and they're the ones that really gave you the extra opportunities. And I think that was a really key message. And we need to think, particularly with Emma in our work going forward with researchers, about getting mentors. We think about supervisors, and I've got Natalia on there, and I'm supervising Natalia at the moment. But a mentor is somebody, I think, is a different role, but it sounds to me like it's a really important role in your journey. Is that how you see it, Elaine?
Absolutely critical. I mean, meeting Daniela was just, you know, the thing that opened up a whole new world for me. And recognizing that when I was sitting on the education committee for BESS, I brought in a mentorship scheme for everybody from BESS, because I wouldn't have been able to move forward. And we looked for volunteers, so people who wanted to advance the clinical pillar, their leadership pillar, or the research pillar. We matched them up with mentors. So we had mentors who said, or, you know, I can offer this, and then match them up with people who said what it was that they felt that they wanted to build in their practice. But yeah, just absolutely crucial for me.
So I think that's a really strong message I've got from your presentation. one little quick comment from myself. I know you've not published anything, have you, yet about your PhD? And I think you've not quite got to your finalise your results, have you yet, or have you got
Yeah,
the end?
yeah, I've got it. Everything's written. All my chapters are written. I'm just in sort of revising and editing now before I get it finally submitted.
I was advised my supervisor to publish before you had your Viva, because it showed that it had been peer reviewed, then it's harder to challenge. But that's just a little.
Yeah, I was going to do it last year, but I had a bit of a life curveball last year, so in the end we just decided to focus on getting the PhD finished. Yeah.
My only other thing, I'm really interested in this MSc to PhD bridging program, because I'd not heard of that before, and I think it sounds a really good move. And 30 days is not an enormous amount contribution, but I was interested to know, what exactly did you do in those 30 days?
So it was partly taught. So it was ran out of University of Birmingham. So you had so many days that were taught days. So they would, give revisions on, qualitative, data, quantitative data, stats programs, different bits about how to develop your portfolio, how to write an application. So some of them were actual taught days, and then other days were just your time to read to help put your application together. But I spent that time in with Daniela in Keele, so in her trials unit, and helping to develop my application, but also being part of the trials unit to see how they were running a lot of their trials as well.
So at the end of it, did you come out with the product being your proposal?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Lovely. Thank you, Elaine. Great.
Because I did the 30 days over, I think it was about 8 months.
Right.
So it wasn't kind of 30 days. I sort of spread them out throughout that time period.
Good. Okay, I won't argue any more because I can see more hands.
Oh, I've already got time for a couple more questions. I've got in our last sort of 5 minutes. So Elaine, you want to fire away?
Hello. I would just like to say that Elaine is my supervisor in a course that I'm doing. I'm doing the Leading Clinical Research Delivery Masters in University of Exeter. And I don't see Elaine as my supervisor. She is a mentor. And everything she has said about her mentors is what she is to me.
Oh.
No, I'm not going to make you cry. But yeah,
thank you.
I see everything in you that you saw in those other people.
Oh, thank you, Elaine. But you're smashing it, so you don't really need me much.
No, I do. I do need you. And you are out there leading the way. And I will hopefully follow you.
Oh, there's obviously a lot of love on the Research Hub.
Yeah.
A lot of love and support. Probably got time for one more question. Don't feel pressured, but anything that you want to ask Elaine from what you've heard this evening? Obviously got, so Debbie from Inclusion said, I really appreciated having a mentor and still would, but I don't work in the NHS. So actually I was thinking, Debbie, that some of this modelling actually, thinking about our research ambassadors in the voluntary and community sector and about where do they get their support. So I think there's definitely some transferable knowledge here in terms of thinking about people in communities and people leading and participating in research and supporting them in their journey. So yeah. And Marion? You're just on mute.
I don't think it matters whether you're in the NHS or not. We should be able to support each other, shouldn't we, through this? My only ask of Elaine was, can you come back and tell us about your findings, please?
I was absolutely going to say that. Yeah, if you have me back, and I can give you a whistle stop through, because
you've tempted us now and want to know what you found.
And as well, I've got Health Education on the Health Education England on the phone. Sorry, not Health Education, NHS England. I've had a few times go to have you got your results yet? Can we have them? And I'm like, no, you can't. You have to wait. So, but yes, maybe being as Gloucestershire has funded me and nurtured me through my research career, Gloucestershire should probably be the first to hear my results, maybe.
Great.
Thank you.
But the mentorship thing, again, the metaphor I always have for it is I do a lot of hill walking. And I walk with a friend who's done like advanced mountain leader qualifications, and he's run D&V programs for like 30 years. And we always joke and say the hardest bit of a walk is finding your way out the car park. You know, like you got to, you know, orientate yourself and, you know, what's the, you know, like working on your compass and your map and all the rest of it. And then once you've started off and you've got those directions in your bearings that you're heading for, it feels easier. And I, you know, going back to the mentors, that's what I feel that they did for me. They turned me in the right direction and said, that's where you're aiming for. This is what you need to go and work on. This is where you need to invest your time. Go. But that bit of not knowing how to start is, I think, in many ways the hardest bit.
I'm really conscious we're down to our sort of last minute and a half now. So I suppose I just really wanted to say thank you very much, Elaine. Jamie,
Jamie wants to.
Really
we could
one?
just talk until we get cut off.
Sorry, I just
wanted
to.
Like that, we might just get cut dead. I'm not too sure what happens after the 40 minutes, whether we just get a black screen. But if people are happy with that, but just wish you all a nice evening if we do get cut off. Thank you. Go fire away, Jamie.
Yeah, sorry, I can't put my hand up for some reason, like the actual thing. But I just wanted to say thank you for your honesty and about sort of the barriers that you've experienced from the sort of male surgeons on the panel. And I'm sure we all realise that they're way too common. And in terms of being a barrier at that sort of leaving the car park moment for people and women and other people in the population seeking to get into research and doing these sorts of things. And I know it's certainly been the case for my wife and other people, women that I know. And I just wondered what you thought we could do as a system to break down those barriers even more now. It shouldn't just be the interpersonal support. Are there sort of more structural things that we could still do to support women and other groups and men as well from different minoritized groups as